Yay, Chris, for the dead silence.
This is the Krillcast Live. I'm Chris.
And I'm Andrew.
And today is what, Andrew?
Printed and pressed, and we're covering Prince Caspian.
Princeton pressed, huh?
Okay.
What's the next book after this one?
After this, we're going to be going over The Prince.
By Machiavelli.
Yep.
Niccolo Machiavelli. I think he's Italian.
Yes, he is.
You're Italian.
Well, he's Italian and he loves Borgias.
Does he love the Borgias? Because I didn't know that.
Yes, if you read the introduction to the one.
I have not read any of it yet because I'd like to wait till we finish the current book to break my brain and do the next book.
Well, Chris, the great thing about these Narnia books is they're short.
And if Will joins the chat but not this live stream, he's getting banned from the account.
Well, don't be hasty. Maybe we should start talking about the book we're here to discuss, though.
Yeah, why don't we
Caspian.
start with why we picked it?
Well, I know if anyone here, hopefully you've been following along with our review of all of the Chronicles of Narnia books so far. You should know by now that this is written by C.S. Lewis.
Clive Staples Lewis.
You know, I forget exactly how many pages this book is, but they're all under 300. Low 200s.
The Chronicles of Narnia are pretty easy reads.
They're pretty low 200s. There's some, pages with pictures on it, so that's not even the full amount. And, these were all written, around
the 40s to the 50s, I think.
Yeah. So, what did you think of this one, Chris?
I thought it was good enough that people should join our book club on Goodreads, so jump on that link I'm dropping in the chat. And it's definitely one of the weaker of the Chronicles of Narnia books. Like, that's a fact. It's one of the weakest ones.
Well, I think we should start this discussion off with some great context that C.S. Lewis has provided to the reader.
Is that true?
Outside of the books. He has. Every single one of these books he's ever written in the main trilogy was not the main trilogy, but like the main sequence, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, the Dawn Treader, they're all standalone.
They were originally all standalone, yeah.
Yeah, so he never really intended to keep writing books when he wrote them. He kept expecting it to be the end.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. He didn't expect to write the next one.
He didn't expect to write like any of these.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
So that's important context, and it explains why this one is the weakest, because he's kind of transitioning away from the original cast and crew to bring Caspian into it and give him his origin story.
Right.
Because, well, just so the reader understands how this book is structured, if you haven't read and been kind of following along with us already, the very beginning you are introduced with Lucy, Edmund, Peter, and Susan again, and they're brought back to Narnia from the train station. They're just shocked because they have no idea where they're at, except for the fact that they're pretty darn sure they're in Narnia, until they eventually discover the ruins of their old castle. And then the only question is how much time has passed since they were there, because time in Narnia versus time in our world are not at all in sync. So that's how the whole introduction is that, really. And then they rescue a dwarf who then starts the story over again, basically, from the perspective of Prince Caspian.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about it that way. It is kind of like a jarring jump from, hey, look, the heroes from Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe are back. Oh, but wait, let's go see what's going on here with this dwarf.
Yeah, he has two different timelines, right, in the book that have to come back and converge. So
it's almost like two different stories happening at the same time.
But they have the same ending.
Right. They come together at the end. Kind of like how the Return of the King brings the two towers back together a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. It all comes back to the same ending, but yeah. So you go through that whole story of Caspian all the way through until it then shows you how Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy were all drawn back to Narnia. To spoil that whole reveal, it was because they blew Susan's horn, which was able to call them. That sounds terrible, but
you said it that way.
Okay. They blew the horn that Susan was given by Father Christmas. Okay.
You're not making it sound better.
Okay, fine. I don't care, Chris. This is a children's book. And if everyone can recall from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, that horn is going to summon help when you most need it from wherever. It doesn't matter, right? And that's what had the magical pull to bring them back to Narnia.
Mm-hmm.
Then, so that ends with the dwarf basically telling them how they got there, and they must now progress to find Caspian to help him in his quest for his kingdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, Aslan shows up. Conflict happens, and Caspian ends up the king. It's really actually.
That's the best part. Is Caspian's not even like a natural born Narnian?
Yeah. But they can't be, right? Kings have to be sons of Adam, and no son of Adam is actually from.
You don't think people could get it on in Narnia and have a son of Adam come out?
There are no humans in Narnia except for those who came from Earth.
What about the horse and his boy?
Those are all. They don't tell you where they came from, but they're all from outside of Narnia.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Chris. He didn't create any Narnia, anyone in that realm who is not a son of Adam, who is a son of Adam already, or like him.
It's almost like Narnia is meant to be the Garden of Eden, and only those with permission
did
can
you really?
enter.
Did she? Okay, but I know everyone is going to be like, "Oh, you just real fast like went over the there's some conflict and he becomes king." Well, that's kind of how it's written because as
there is a part though that you did skip over that I want to highlight. There's this whole question about what makes a being, and the idea is that there are animalistic behavior. There's a part in here where they actually question the idea of souls and reality and the physical body, and it's this portion in the middle where you discover that most of the talking Narnia animals are in hiding or gone. Okay, and they come across animals where the animals can't talk, and they feel bad about killing it at first, and then they realize like, oh, it's not a talking Narnia animal. Like, oh, it doesn't have a soul almost is what it's going on here. So,
well, okay, Chris, this was just the general overview of where the story arc is.
That's probably the deepest point in the whole book, honestly.
But we're going to get to that.
All right.
That was what's next, right? Parts that you found valuable.
Well, that's okay. Is there anything else to add to the summary of the book other than maybe the part about Caspian accidentally betraying his nurse?
Well, that's all. Well, that's a good portion to get into next, I think, because Peter, Susan, Edmund, and them. There's
also the whole spare and an heir thing where his uncle doesn't have any kids, and then all of a sudden he has a kid.
Well, Chris, you're getting into the next portion where we talk about the lessons learned, man.
Lessons learned: don't trust your uncle. That's pretty much common across C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
Never trust the uncle.
Well, and then the final reveal at the end is that Peter and Susan are too old to come back to Narnia in the future.
I know, what the heck, man.
He sends them all back to Earth with the promise to Lucy and Edmund that they basically are going to come back again.
Yeah.
Plot twist is a spoiler for the next book.
Voyage of the Dawn Treader, anyone?
Yeah. No. Okay. Let's jump into like stories within the story that you found valuable. And
okay, just right off the get-go, I found it interesting that getting back to Narnia via the horn felt like them being pulled, like physically pulled back in.
Right.
It's kind of an oddball thing. I would have thought with the horn they would have fallen in, like it would have, the horn would have opened up some kind of sound wave door where they just fall in, but it ended up being like literally a pull from I don't know. It's like they're blowing the horn of the angels, and the angels are pulling them in or something.
I mean, it makes sense to me. I never really questioned it.
They're not going to run through platform 9 3/4.
Right. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, is it really the horn itself that's pulling them through, or is it Aslan pulling them through because of the horn? Like,
Aslan can't pull; he's got claws.
oh my gosh!
Even though he can transform into a kitty cat and all kinds of other stuff. I think this is a book where a longer form version of this would have been better.
This story needed to be fleshed out a lot more. I think that's part of the problem. It's kind of,
you don't ever really get to know Caspian other than a few things he does.
Well, you don't get to truly understand the modern, the current day Caspian that you are seeing take the throne, right? You only really see young Caspian, and there's no good timeline there of how old he really is until Peter says about his age, which could have been anything, right? That's roughly probably younger.
My guess is that you can't come back to Narnia once you reach the age of consent.
Sure, probably.
Because it's like 16 or 18, I don't know which.
But I'm saying, like, there's no good, even
unlike Peter Pan, who has the Lost Boys and never lets them grow up.
But what I'm saying is the one character who ever describes Caspian's age, outside of his behavior describing his age, very naive, kind of very young seeming for the vast majority of his part.
Peter or Caspian?
Caspian,
okay. I was mishearing you.
No, I'm saying because Peter's the only one who ever describes his age outside of you having to infer from his behaviors and actions, right? So Peter saying about his about their age basically means he could have been Edmund's age for all we know, right? It's not very clear. And then you have to wonder about the time, like how much time passes between Narnia and Earth when you factor in how old he is in the Dawn Treader.
Apparently, C.S. Lewis has given us the age of Peter outside of the books. He is apparently 14.
So
in
he's
Prince
young.
Caspian.
Yeah. So Caspian's no older than 14, probably younger than 14.
And he was 13 in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Okay.
So apparently there's only about a year that goes by between Lion, the Witch, and
the Wardrobe. We know that there's only a year between the two. Yeah, they say that.
That's what I thought. So the question is, how old can you be at Narnia? Is 14 the oldest you can be? That's kind of crazy.
No, probably. Well, I guess 15, 16 is probably.
Well, I was wrong. It's younger than what I thought.
Well, depends on. Okay, let's just be. I'll point it out that England had weird consent laws, so technically maybe it's not or different than what you're saying historically. There's a lot there, man. If you go dig into the history. But I think a lot of the lessons learned early on are during Caspian's time, because, like you already alluded to, him ratting on his nurse. There's so much to that specific part of the story.
He was willing to sacrifice the closest person in his life to maintain what he had. And then he learned a valuable lesson from it.
He didn't really. What do you mean he was willing to sacrifice her?
He sacrificed that relationship. She was sent away.
Not because he was talking about something he wasn't supposed to.
Right. So he learned a valuable lesson about sharing with his uncle things that he's not supposed to be doing.
Well, yes, he learned a valuable lesson about how, let's bring it back here. When you're under a totalitarian government, it's kind of like the Soviets or the Nazis when the children ratted out their parents at school unknowingly.
So who are the Telmarines, Andrew?
They're totalitarian according to the book. Did you read about the portion where he's talking about it's a miserable kingdom because of their strict rules and stern laws and
hold on a second.
Taxes? It's an unhappy country. Okay, Chris is on pause here, mute, so I'll just tell everybody. An unhappy kingdom equals high taxes, stern laws, and a cruel king. And that is what the that kingdom was. Okay, Chris is just making this awkward now.
That was Will. Will's coming out in a minute. He said he's going to crap all over the book, and then he's going to leave.
Sounds good. Did you hear anything I said?
I heard some of it.
Okay.
I'm not gonna make you rehash it, because if you do,
but
I hear it twice. But basically, I think the lesson. Okay, we're learning lessons right now.
Yes.
The lesson to be learned is that you need to know the authority that you're living under, and even though not all authorities are morally correct, you need to make sure you keep the skin of your family and friends safe as much as possible.
Well, it's more than that, right? It's you talking about things that you heard from someone else has
in front of the wrong person.
Yeah, has consequences on other people. Right? That's the lesson to learn for kids.
Well, not only that, but even
adults need to
go ahead and finish.
Well, I was saying even adults need to learn that as well. But
there's a reason why Jesus in the temple left when the Pharisees looked like they were going to kill him.
Right. I mean, you also, that's another point. He was ignorant of the response that he was yet to learn, like that reaction that his uncle was having, his facial expression and stuff, and he overstepped when he had warning. But on top of that whole lesson there, you also have the lesson about how
why his uncle was okay with raising him?
No, not that. About how because his uncle did not take an active role in raising him, he allowed others to raise him.
That's true.
And because he allowed others to raise him, Caspian developed the love of all those Narnian stories because he was not raised by his uncle in the culture that his uncle wanted, right?
That's true.
He was raised by Narnians. So it's a valuable lesson about
for
how
parents and
kind
kids.
of for parents, right? It's more that's kind of geared towards the parents of, hey, if you don't raise your children and instill in them the value, the teacher will raise them right there.
The teacher or whoever your authority figure is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a valuable lesson for parents reading the book with their kids, I think.
Well, I think here's a good point though. In societies, a lot, like if you go back long enough, the providers weren't always necessarily raising their kids, but when your parents or somebody who's older than you in your family got to a certain age where they really couldn't provide as much, sometimes they'd be the ones raising the kids, and that was totally fine. It was because you could trust the values of the parents, aunts, uncles, whatever it would be, and then they could still provide something valuable to the family. Whereas nowadays, the bulk of families, you've got one, maybe two providers, and you don't really have that option right now.
Or people get a nanny. That's a thing too among certain levels. It does, but I'm saying people do. So but it's important to realize
that's what a lot of royalty does.
Well, okay, there is a large segment of the population that can still afford a nanny out there. In not large, but there's a decent chunk of people who actually afford nannies in some cities. Just saying, Chris. No, but I guess there's there's just this whole sense of censorship in this book too, because of how his uncle the king is.
Right.
Which, let's just get into that next thing. C.S. Lewis loves to point out who you can't necessarily trust. So you can't trust the uncle in this case because he tries to have him killed. So the
thing is like Prince Caspian doesn't realize why his uncle's raising him the way he is, and the fact of the matter is he's never been taught that kings need an heir, and that if an heir doesn't exist, then they got to pick somebody, and Caspian happens to be the lucky fella who gets picked, and then when his uncle has a son, he doesn't recognize the danger he's in.
Well, that and also just the lesson that you can't necessarily trust family too if they envy and desire what is yours, because his uncle killed his father, then was seeking to kill him. His uncle also purged the loyal royals, so there was no one actually to stand up for Caspian at any point in the future.
Right.
And then Oh, how can we forget that it's technically a story about genocide,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because
right?
they kill
Because
off all of
any
the.
talking beast, the true Narnians were all killed. They were trying to kill them all off.
They were trying to kill them off. They
Yeah.
didn't. They weren't successful.
I mean, is any genocide ever really successful to that point, though?
I guess it depends on what you consider successful.
Well, okay. You can find a diaspora of almost any group that's ever been targeted. It's pretty dang hard to truly eliminate everybody. So that's where, it was one, but they weren't obviously successful. Like, none of them are ever truly successful because you need everybody on board for it to be successful, which is pretty darn hard.
Right.
Which I think that also leads into what is there a chat?
I somehow managed to both ban Will and pin his message.
Oh,
so the pinned message right now says message deleted by the Krillcast. View deleted message. Oh, sorry, Will. All right. So I agree with you. Like there's a trust thing that C.S. Lewis constantly explores. It's like, so who can you trust? And the answer usually is the opposite of the person that they trust in the beginning of the story, but over time they learn the lesson of here's why you can or can't trust this person.
And these books are really great. Yeah, like you said, it's really great at saying why you can or can't trust them. It's really good at showing the behaviors that you need to watch out for and observe. It's trying to teach kids to be more observant, I think.
Yeah, and picking up on bad habits and stuff. Like, for example, the magic uncle. I mean, clearly the dude is crooked and weird.
Remember, they're talking about the mannerisms in that one.
Yes.
And he kind of does the same thing in this one where his uncle's clearly a cruel man.
He's at least hard. At the very least,
he's hard. But they describe him as cruel multiple times.
Not hard in the creepy uncle sense. Hard like hard-willed, stubborn.
Stern.
There you go. Stern.
There you go, Chris. But when you factor in all of the stuff we've just talked about, it makes the next portion of the journey so much more significant. We forgot to talk about the tutor that comes in as well.
The tutor was really important because he was smarter about hiding and also teaching Caspian to hide the important things.
He mentors him in how to truly handle knowledge and be aware of his surroundings to avoid what happened with the nurse.
Right.
The nurse is a victim of trusting small children not to just blabber, right?
You can't. Kids will always blabber. You can tell your kid what you got your wife for her birthday or whatever, and they're going to tell her. Fact of the matter.
I mean, that's even a lesson kind of along the lines of how Lucy learned the lesson of how she couldn't even trust Edmund in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. He blabbed all about everything to the witch, right?
Right.
So you have to be careful even amongst your peers who you tell because they might be too naive. But the part that's really significant is in his escape and how much grace Truffle Hunter shows him. That's the part that
wasn't that his name? His name was Truffle Hunter.
Yeah. So everyone understands. Truffle Hunter is a badger.
Yeah.
A talking badger, and he lives with two dwarves. One's a dark dwarf, and a black dwarf is I forget what are they called. Black, yeah, and the other's a red dwarf.
A dark dwarf.
So, for context, anyone who's not aware, the dark dwarves were basically in the bag for the White Witch back in the day. So
they're less trustworthy in the land of
they're kind of the reason they're called dark dwarves is because they kind of are dark, but they have black hair.
They were in line with the the bad giants and the various bad creatures.
They're very selfish. They kind of have the greed, selfishness.
It's kind of like the difference, and they're also the ones that are more likely to favor pureblood dwarfs versus the standard dwarfs who are totally okay with the mentor of Caspian.
Because the tutor for Caspian was half dwarf. The guy in here, what's his name? The black dwarf. He is.
It's like Nicholas or Nickel.
He is cruel as can be. It's like Trek Bark or something.
No, Trey Barks. That's his mentor. Let's find out. I thought it was NIC or NIK.
Nickabrick or something like that. Yeah, you're right.
Nickabrick.
Nickabrick. But he is just constantly wanting to kill people.
He also
cruel,
like wants
right?
to
Like,
resurrect the witch at some point.
yes, he always is trying. Well, okay. The note I took down for him as I was reading it was he will ally with anyone. He literally has no moral compass. None.
Yeah, it's like the enemy of my enemy. You never know what he's gonna do. Who he's gonna ally with next.
Right. And he was terrible. He was, well, okay, he was friends with a werewolf and a hag. He tried to get Caspian to call on the White Witch multiple times, really.
Well, yeah, they asked him what he thought would be, or what he was. He says something along the lines of, "We need to consider every option," and they're like, "Well, what is every option?" He's like, "We need to call out the White Witch."
Yeah. And, it's important to know that all of the stories about Aslan, the stone table, the White Witch, and the kids themselves and what their role was is very much almost kind of like lost. It's not lost, but it's lost, right? They don't know the full details. They don't necessarily believe any of the stories. It's become much more generalized, so they don't really understand what happened with the table, the significance. They don't necessarily believe that Aslan came back from the dead to kill the witch or anything. Some of them believe it could be a story told by the kid, by Peter and them, to have more legitimacy or whatever it was. So there's a lot of lack of faith at least among the dwarves, right?
Well, it's kind of like, I didn't think about this till you said that. Like,
What?
the allegory is like these are the people that crucified Aslan on the stone table.
Yeah.
So they're the least willing to believe it happened. He comes
Yeah.
from that group of people.
Yeah, he does. Yep. And
And conversion never comes easy. So like Aslan's gonna have a hard time convincing people like him of his status as, the resurrected king of Narnia.
Oh, there was one part that I thought was really funny, given that it was the era that C.S. Lewis wrote this about so he's writing about the horn, right? And the kids are when they found out about it, there's a comment about how it's like living at the mercy of the telephone. And I found that really funny because C.S. Lewis wrote this well before any cell phones were ever invented. So I would love to see his perspective on how at the mercy of a phone people are today.
1 second.
I thought Will was actually going to log on.
I know. I know. Anyways, I agree with you. They were at the mercy of a telephone. It's like the bat signal. It's like, we need Batman. Choo, put it up in the air.
No, but I'm saying in the book he actually describes it that way. And we got dead silence because Chris.
I just want to. Hey, is this Will?
This is Will.
All right, here. I want you to tell everybody what you think of the book.
It was my lowest rated book of the series so far. I'm honestly disappointed in it. I hope that the books pick up after this one, and that C.S. Lewis didn't lose his steam in his creative department. But I did tune in a little bit, and I was listening to Andrew, and I do have a question for him. Did you see my question, or did he delete it? Because I heard you talk about
He deleted it. Tell him you deleted it, Chris.
Can you hear me?
I technically deleted it, Will. Sorry. Oh, yeah, that's right. Andrew, you can't hear Andrew. I thought you could hear him, but you can't. Okay, yeah. No, I deleted it on accident. I was jokingly putting you in timeout on the YouTube thing.
Okay.
But I did see it.
See the question?
No, I did not.
Here, I'll read it to you, Andrew. It says, "I hope it gets better." Isn't that, or not my favorite? Oh no, your question never showed up, Will. Your
Andrew
question.
was talking about how in all these C.S. Lewis books, it's a common theme that he's trying to get across that kids shouldn't trust their relatives necessarily. And I was asking him, when he was actually bringing it up, why do you think C.S. Lewis is really hitting on that point in each book? And a lot of times it's the uncle, like don't trust the uncle.
Right. I mean, it's a very interesting question, right? I think
He's responding to you, Will.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't hear him. So.
I know. I think it's tied to the fact that a lot of abuse is someone close to the family, right? And uncles are one of the. It's like maybe an odd. Okay, Chris.
Okay.
I think it's because that's what statistics say, right?
Yeah, it's not my favorite. I still don't understand why there has to be other princes or kings. I just want it to be the original 4.
What's your rating, Will? Scale of 5.
This one. Okay, so let me think back on the other ones. I gave the Horse and the Boy a 5. I gave Narnia 4. I guess the Lion, Loach, and Warded 4. I would give this one a 3. I still think it's well written. It's still interesting. As a kid, I think I would have enjoyed it more. But it's definitely a low point in the series for me thus far.
There you have it. Will said it's the lowest point in the series so far. I'm going to let Will go now. I know he's got stuff going on, but he had to get his 2 cents in here. So say bye, Will.
Bye, everybody. This has been the Trollcast.
All right, so we got a 3 out of Will.
Going to his question again, though, I do think.
No, you're totally right. It's usually somebody close to you.
Yeah,
and usually the parents don't have a problem trusting somebody close. So you have to be able to read the signs, even as a kid. You need to be able to read the signs when you're in danger.
But okay, it goes deeper than that, though. When you think about it, most of the time these are children where their parents aren't there, actively involved. For some reason, their parents are distracted or drawn away, or the kids are drawn away from the parents, and they're in a very vulnerable position to be taken advantage of. And he always starts it off with a family member, right? But it's not always a family member. He's done the stranger danger really heavily in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Oh, yeah. The Magician's Nephew was way more stranger danger. Look at the White Witch.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. He did stranger danger and family in The Magician's Nephew. He did stranger danger exclusively in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Mm-hmm. In The Horse and His Boy, he basically did I guess it was the adopted parent danger kind of thing. Stepmother danger. And
there was a lot of issues in the foster system even back then. So that could make sense. But also it was his uncle. So it wasn't necessarily like somebody, although his uncle did murder. I mean, this is basically Lion King. This is the plot of Lion King.
Oh, you're talking about in this one. I was talking about in The Horse and His Boy. It was the foster system and the stepmother who you couldn't necessarily trust because she wanted nothing to do with kids that weren't her own, right? That was a huge issue at one point in history.
And Horse and His Boy?
Yeah, because they're trying to marry off the daughter. There's the stepmother hates her, right? So
that's true, yeah. I didn't think about that one. I thought you were still talking about whatever his name is, the boy instead of the girl. I thought you were saying
no. And then in this one, you have the uncle because the parents are dead, so there's more elements there because the uncle killed them.
But let's remind ourselves, why is the parents dead?
Because he killed them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to
know how he did that so slyly without Caspian realizing it. He must have been young when it happened.
Caspian was really young in that. He's like a I don't know, 5 or something early on. It sounds like it's hard to say.
He had to be young, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't have a tutor at that point. He only had a nurse.
True.
Right? So that's like kindergarten, bro. So
I do find it interesting when he finds out about the talking animals in Narnia and he kills an animal and he's like, oh no, did I kill a talking one, right?
Oh yeah.
That was a pretty interesting.
And to go back to, I don't think, if I can recall, I don't remember if in the later books he still does the you can't trust certain people thing to the same level. He probably does. I think
Voyage of the Dawn Treader does.
Which who can't you trust in that? We'll discuss it in the next one, I guess.
We'll get to it.
there's the there's the part where when they're on their way to find Caspian, all of them don't believe Lucy again.
I know, it's like poor
And
Lucy.
well, except for Edmund, he believes her, right? He's willing to believe her, but he gets overruled and
He basically
outvoted.
says like, "Oh, we can always come back if she's wrong."
Yeah, but the important part is Aslan says that she should have still gone to him,
Yep.
right? Like he
That's
rebukes her
just
for
like
not doing that.
that's just like the whole drop everything and follow me thing in the Bible.
Yes, I
Because
mean
he does
you.
parallel a lot of the Bible in the books.
Yeah, and the lesson there is you are responsible for
For yourself.
for yourself, and there's no excuse.
There's only so much you can do for others before you have to be responsible for
Yeah. Just because the crowd goes one way does not mean you are supposed to follow said crowd. You are supposed to do what you think is right.
you. Be a leader. Be a leader, except, also be a follower, I suppose, at the same time.
Well, be a leader for what's right.
Yes.
Follow what is right.
Lead the way toward the path of righteousness.
Yeah, and I think he did a really good job with the following. Like, so the way he made the journey to follow Aslan, it's
Where the only person who could see him was still Lucy.
Well, it's more than that. He really did make it like following Christ in the sense of the journey looks hard and unsurmountable at times, but as long as you stay true to the path, right? Then
they also course corrected when they
good.
got fired at by the enemy.
Well, that too, but I'm saying like the journey was really difficult for them.
Yeah.
It wasn't an easy path to follow, but it worked. Like the way it worked out was they would have made it to Caspian so much sooner if they had just followed.
It probably didn't help Lucy's cause trying to follow with the fact that she was the least tired after the rowing journey, because Peter, Edmund, and Susan were all spending all of their effort rowing, even though I knew Lucy wasn't big enough or strong enough to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, when they were all tired, she was probably like, "Let's go. We got to go up there to see Aslan." And they're all like, "Yeah, easy for you to say."
Right. And it wasn't the obvious path. They had just had all of this where they're not familiar with the terrain at all, and there's no reason they should go in the direction opposite of where they know a settlement is.
Should we get into the very deep one paragraph part of the book that really like?
Yeah, this is right around that. This is technically right after the part that really hit you. So
the part that stuck out to me is when they're talking about how all the Narnians went into hiding, and they see I think it was a bear.
They're attacked by a bear.
Attacked by a bear.
Yeah.
Who they initially think like, oh, is it a Narnian? And then it's like, no, this thing just growls at them and attacks them. And they're like, wow, how crazy would it be if we were out in the wilderness and we saw a human who we thought we could communicate with, and it turns out, no, they're a non-communicative beast with no soul and no thoughts.
Well, and it's deeper than that even, right?
It is, but that's basically the question.
No. But what I'm saying is it's worse than that, because they're in Narnia where they expect these creatures to speak. And now they're in this position where this bear came out of the woods, right? They don't know. Maybe he thinks they're Telmirs or whatever. Telmarines. And he's just trying to protect his forest, right? His area, so they don't come back and kill him. But they don't have time to even think about that, or he would have killed him. And if the dwarf wasn't there, they would have died.
Right.
So they don't have the luxury to even find out if these creatures that the normal thing is to try to talk to them are even able to talk. It's just all threat now.
And the thing about that was, it was so interesting to think about. Like, what if you came across someone?
Well, people have, Chris.
Well, yes, but not in the modern age. Imagine you come across a person
you could
who is a slave to the demonic or the soulless or something along those lines, and they literally can't talk. They're only a hulking, sulking beast who wants food.
Well, okay. because of terrible interactions with explorers in the past. There's that tribe on that down by the island.
Yeah, that one island that nobody's allowed to go on.
Yeah, because they will kill you instantly, and a few missionaries have been
There's been
killed.
more than one Christian missionary trying to go on that island.
Yeah, and you get killed instantly. And there's the cannibal tribes that exist in Papua New Guinea area. So
the thing is, I mean, I would fear external sources too if I were them, because they had some people come off the island and come back with disease and die.
And there's also some tribes in the Amazon. So if you decide to go to the frontiers of this world, you can still run into this exact circumstance, and that I think that's what he's kind of describing a little bit. The English explorer goes, you run into a group of people, and turns out it's a tribe.
I don't know. I kind of looked at it more like a zombie.
Well, I mean, we discussed it a little bit off.
Well, you said that the original zombies are probably cannibals.
Yeah, I think that they're kind of originally cannibals, or there's human history is littered with sieges and stuff that turned into starvation. And I mean, even in the Bible,
in desperation, Chris, you can be lowered to that of a beast.
Well, I mean, even in the Bible, right? When there's sieges and the people are starving, they go around taking people's kids to eat and stuff, and they eat each other, and there's all sorts of stuff like that.
There's that one story. I think it's either Samuel or Elijah or Elisha or whatever, and he tells them not to eat the kid and just eat the porridge.
Well, there's also that story where one woman agrees with another woman to eat her child today.
Yeah, that's a parable, though, I think, isn't it?
I can't remember, but then she doesn't offer her child the next day to be eaten. So there's a strife there, but. I think
that was Old Testament. I think is that Old Testament?
It's Old Testament. That's Old Testament. And so when you look it over, right, there's two circumstances. Either you're in the uncivilized frontier, which is the wilderness in this case, right, or you're in the massive, or you're under siege and you're starving and you've fallen into this despair where now you are just an animal looking to survive, which both are kind of applicable to this circumstance, right? The Narnians were under siege to the point that they reverted to animals, and they were also in the wilderness, like extreme isolation. I
think the whole point of it is are you in servitude of your physical needs or desires, or have you mastered and made yourself the master of your domain, the body that you're in control of? And that's a whole question about willpower. Like people who have a lot of willpower can go a lot longer without eating, drinking, whatever it's going to take, than people who have not mastered.
I mean, it goes beyond just willpower, though. It's also what fuels your willpower.
That's true, too, yeah.
I mean, if you don't have a low time preference, if you're a high time preference individual, you need something constantly stimulating. You need to go do this thing, do that thing, constant excitement. You don't care about saving money. You don't think about the future long term or anything. What do you have to hope for in that circumstance that requires willpower? Right, like you're training yourself to need instant gratification, and that's just nothing but detriment.
It also kind of made me think about the idea of domestication, right? So, like domesticated animals don't behave the same way as wild animals.
They have smaller brains.
And how did they get there? Well, they have a constant stream of food. They have a constant stream of water. They don't have to worry about shelter. And it basically takes them out of their natural element and makes them in servitude of man. So what happens when you apply those same principles to a human? The
same thing, Chris.
We're becoming a domesticated society.
No, we already are. Human brains have shrunk, actually. Just like domesticated animals, they have shrunk. So
that's why it's important to read, boys and girls.
Yes. But, I mean, when you lack that mental stimulation of having to solve problems every day, true problems, your brain will shrink. It makes perfect sense. I think that is like the last good lesson of this book overall.
That's probably true.
because it's really hard to take lessons from the follow up to this part of the story. Um,
Yeah, because
Aslan,
Aslan saves the day.
yeah, because Aslan shows up, and this is really where my critique of the book goes, because I think the story's great all the way up until this point. Once Aslan's in, it's kind of like you bump up the speed of the story by like 2x.
Right.
Everything's just happening real fast. Everything that the kids do and Caspian does and the Narnians do, it's all pointless because Aslan's there to save the day and bring the trees into combat. They didn't have to do anything, right? They're just there to describe the events. And Aslan does everything that's great, which I understand with the biblical imagery, because technically God does everything too that is of greatness, but it's not the most interesting read in the story.
Right.
It just high speeds it. And
I mean, there was the Peter versus Mirez battle.
Well, the combat's pointless as long as Peter doesn't die.
Well, that's true.
As long as Peter can live long enough, Aslan's going to bring the tree army.
Right. he brings the one of those guys called in Treebeard. He brings Treebeard for
basically, yeah.
The Ents are showing up.
There's.
I wonder if he did like legit steal that from Tolkien.
I don't know. You have to look at which one came first.
I think it was actually C.S. Lewis, but C.S. Lewis would have been discussing all these things with J.R. Tolkien at the pub, so who knows?
But his aren't really the same. They're different,
not.
obviously. But
his
are explicitly Greek myth.
Right. Right.
His is explicitly Greek myth. That's the interesting thing about it. No, there's probably some valuable stuff within the Aslan journey. It's really hard to.
I did like how he shows them mercy when they give up, instead of just saying slaughter them.
Right, there is that.
Which to me, like a defeated people who are giving up, you got two choices. You either take the fear route and you kill them, mm-hmm. or you take the mercy route and you let them go.
Right,
and he takes the mercy route.
He offers them to go back to our Earth,
right,
and live on an abandoned island where they originally were from.
And the real question is, how old were they? Because how did they get to Narnia?
Right, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Imagine you and your friends are all like hanging out on an island one day and you fall into Narnia. You're like,
Chris,
16.
There's nothing about age that prevents you from going to Narnia.
That's true. I guess the witch made it. No,
okay. This is the first time he talks about how they're too old now for what their purpose was, because you had the uncle who went to Narnia, you had the cabbie who went to Narnia. These people went through a different type of door. They went through a different door. Aslan specifically brings the cabbie's wife in so they can have a family and steward Narnia.
And then their kids hook up with the trees.
Basically, it's super weird.
You're saying hook up with the
especially okay. It's made weirder by the way he describes the trees in this specific book. When it's not really explained what the tree people are like, it's a lot less weird. This one makes it super weird.
Yeah, he's like walking out in the forest. Which tree will be my wife?
Right. Oh, I really like this willow. Oh, but did you see this beech tree over here?
Oh, dang. Man. Yeah, the ash tree. Yeah, we don't have any ash trees where I live anymore.
Look at that mahogany. So
there's nice
There's
mahogany.
One thing that's not explicitly stated, but extremely hilarious. Archenland survives it all.
Yeah, well, the real question is, who gets wood, you or the tree?
No, okay. Archenland.
Sorry, that's a good joke. Come on.
I know, but okay, Archenland.
Yeah, you're right. Archenland survives everything.
But okay, the real paradise, the city on the hill that you want to live in, is freaking Archenland, because the White Witch doesn't take Archenland. The Telmarines
Isn't that where
Archenland? What?
Oh, I guess
Or-
Archenland gets destroyed by Aslan.
When? I don't know when.
Along with the rest of the world. That's at the end
Oh,
of the book.
it's the end. That's
Yeah.
not fair. No, Archland is never conquered. They see the end of days.
Yeah, that's true.
I just want to point out how OP Archland is. Like, how?
The only fight that they go through is in Horse and His Boy, and that's it.
Yeah, but it's not like Archland is super populated, full of people now, is it?
It's paradise.
It's
And
apparently-
they have what's his face, Tom Bombadil.
Oh, they have the
Tom
Narnian
Bombadil of
Tom
Narnia.
Bombadil.
The old
He can
monk
see
guy.
everybody coming, so he gives them ahead of time warning that invasion's
And then he
coming.
feeds them
That's
magic
why.
mushrooms so you can, keep them tripping out.
No, but isn't it super interesting that they can't conquer that? They conquer everything else. Narnia is a significantly larger populace. You had centaurs, you have whatever else is there. The trees. How do you lose a battle when your entire forest can go to war? Please.
What's Narnia? That's not Archenland.
No, that's what I'm saying. How did Narnia lose?
Because
not-
Aslan allowed it. That's how. How else?
Well, yeah, but
Kind of like how I think he's just mirroring the Bible because of how many times it was allowed that God's people were conquered.
true. I mean, fair point. Fair point. I just love though how Archenland is just there. Like, if you have to pick
They're
a place
we're
to
OP.
land,
We're OP.
It's like- if I'm ever drawn into Narnia someday, I know where the heck I'm going. I don't
Archenland.
care. I'm going to Archenland. Okay, like that is safe haven. I know we'll win every war. Okay, like. But this book, the second half is weak. It's very weak to me.
I wonder if Archenland's based on any real place. Like, is it Ireland?
Doubt it. I mean, even the British couldn't conquer Ireland completely, so maybe maybe it is Ireland. It's the Ireland to Narnia.
Is it Scotland? I mean, Archenland kind of
No,
sounds
Scotland
like
Archenland gets conquered.
that's
Scotland is currently part of the UK.
So everything is conquered by Aslan.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right. Is there any other morals that could be taken out of this book?
I mean, there is if we go back to where they're trying to bring in the White Witch, there is the moral that, there is a certain type of victory that's not worth it.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. You never want to sacrifice your morals or your soul to win.
Yeah, actually, let's expand on it because it is very applicable to today. We're all about this intersectionality and the enemy of my enemy is my friend bullcrap, right?
But sometimes some allies are not good for your cause.
Exactly. At some point, you got to recognize if this enemy of my enemy is also my enemy.
Like, are they going to pull the rug out from under me somewhere midway through?
Exactly. And there's plenty of times in history where enemies ally against shared enemy only to then turn swords on each other, or one backstabs the other at the victory table, right?
Let us draw swords.
You can see that in results from World War II, technically.
That's true.
But actually, yeah, really much so. You look at it where technically the Bolsheviks, all the communist countries had this happen, right? Where they would set aside their differences a little bit to fight foreign enemies.
Axis and allies.
One group would allow the other to do much of the heavy fighting just to come in and sweep the field later of their supposed friend. Well, ceasefire. This CCP did that to the nationalists in China as well.
Because let's be honest, are there any allies in communism?
No. So yeah, don't just trust somebody because they're also against a shared enemy. They could be bringing in something much worse, like the White Witch, or Mao. Or
I say
Stalin.
in that case, the better description would be the enemy of my enemy could be my shield.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to take that lesson, hide behind them while they go and get destroyed. That's a valuable lesson too. But with the White Witch, I don't think you want to risk it. That's too powerful of a force to deal with, right?
Yeah, and especially, I doubt Aslan would look upon that very kindly.
I mean, you have to. Okay, let's point out too. In this specific circumstance, you have to uplift your enemy. So
And
it's a
then could
little
you even
different.
trust her?
Right?
She's
It's
just
a
gonna kill
little different.
everybody.
I mean, if you have an enemy that you need to cease fire with because of a shared outside force that's going to destroy both of you,
Probably don't resurrect
a
that
little
enemy.
different. But don't resurrect the enemy you already destroyed to fight a new enemy.
I almost
That
wish C.S. Lewis would
doesn't
have
work.
let him bring her back just to see what would have happened.
See her get wrecked on the field of battle.
I have no. I'd just be curious what would have.
I mean, does she come back
does she
with
come back
her
in the
wand?
movie? Does she come back in the movie?
In the movie, they have her image. It's real. The movie sucks. Okay, let's go there. Actually, real quick, don't watch the movie. It's terrible. Because of how little conflict actually does occur in this story. The movie adds extra conflict, and it also adds a love story aspect to love interest between Susan and Caspian. And I just want to point out that I don't even think they say more than one word to each other. And it's Sue saying one word to Caspian at the end of basically bye. Like that is the most interaction they have in this entire book.
My wife pointed out to me a reason why there's so much additional content in the movies. It's because most people who are watching the movies didn't read the books. And so how do you tie together a series, a chronicles of books that don't have the same characters and keep people interested? Well, you have to continuously pump in content for the 4 characters that people care about. So the movie makers took some serious creative liberties to keep the story about the 4 Pevensey children.
True. I think that Netflix doing a TV series.
Up.
I think Netflix doing a TV series, I would be okay if they would expand on the parts that are actually talked about in the book, but like briefly. So like the invasion of Narnia.
It's probably going to be canceled and they're going to let the contract roll out.
Probably.
Just let me know. I found that out recently.
It probably will be just because I don't think they're creative enough over there to make it work. And they're
concerned that if they do the series in the way that they've done other series, people won't watch it. And they saw Rings of Power.
Well, okay, there's that, but also...
They got to watch that crashing, burning ship.
Okay, there's a way that you could do this very well. And you have to expand on the unspoken part, like on the briefly touched upon aspects of the story. And just expand show more of the universe and not let it be so...
At the end and the beginning of each book, you almost have to give a summary of what's going on.
Kind of. Maybe
to fill in some gaps a little bit.
Like what happens next type of thing.
Yeah, or even just like this many years has gone by and in the time this happened.
The problem is I think this is the problem that Netflix is seeing is they can't use each book as its own season.
You could.
It'd be hard. It wouldn't be 10 episodes.
You could do 10 up. You could do maybe but you know what? Peaky Blinders only did I think between 3 and 6 episodes, and that
I could see six. I could see 6 episodes per season, maybe. But I don't think that they're interested in the stories that they need to be interested in on how they would expand it. So
yeah, I mean they're gonna try and add love interests and the stuff that really doesn't add anything to the story.
Right. It's not going to be about the universe.
You know what would ruin these books?
Context.
Even one single sex scene would ruin these books.
You mean the show? If they did the show?
Oh, that's what I mean. If
they can't ruin the books, because
what I mean by ruin the books is it would ruin the story that's there.
Yeah,
you can't do that.
There's literally not a single. I mean, they would try to do it for showing the horse and the boy the love interest between him and.
I guess if you made it at the very end, you could allude to those two getting married and having kids or something.
Yeah.
But you still wouldn't have an actual scene.
I mean, they would add in... it would be... Okay, The Horse and the Boy is
that
actually
could probably do 10 plus episodes. On
that one could do 10 plus episodes, and they would really exploit, though, the Susan love interest thing with the
Yeah,
Prince.
because you would add in an extra scene where they have the
Courtship, the whole
Parabellum
courtship, and yeah.
Yeah.
But
Anyways,
as
but
far
Prince
as this,
Caspian, don't go watch that movie.
don't watch it. It's
Lion
terrible.
the Witch and the Wardrobe is kind of worth it, but Prince Caspian not so much.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they the changes they made to expand on the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I think were actually decent.
Other
For what it
than
was.
removing almost the entire aspect of the stories at the professor's house.
Yes, that's the only part that's.
Yeah, that's the only part that sucked. I know what you're gonna say, but your dogs are barking, so I understand. All right, should we rate this thing?
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Let's go into rating it. I agree with Will. I'm a 3. I just think that the second half of the book, once they find Aslan, I don't want to say it's poorly written. I just want to say that he has C.S. Lewis, when Aslan's involved, has this tendency to basically write it as if everything's gone God mode, and it's just drawing conclusions. He's just bringing everything to conclusion from that point, and there's not a lot of. It's almost like an epilogue. It's just afterward. That's what it kind of comes off.
Despite the way this book is written, I actually think this one is the most linear story out of all of them. It does not take much time jumping around.
No, it is very linear, yeah. Except for telling the Caspian story, it jumps.
But that literally takes like the whole plot is that. So like there's no. This book takes no breaks. And at the end, the only complaint I really have with the book is the rushed ending.
Yeah, I agree. That the ending is where I just find the ending very weak because
I would put this book almost tied with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
I have to say it's lower than The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe just because he rushes the ending of this one significantly more.
I'll give it a 3.5.
Okay. I mean, I can see that as a valid rating. I gave a 4 to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
I said almost equal.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I don't think it's...
If I had to give it a full point rating, I'd probably give it a 4.
If I can
keep my half, it's 3.5.
You think it's that close to?
I can't give it a 3. There's enough there that I don't feel good giving it a 3. I mean, let me rephrase that. If I'm ranking this book based on just the Chronicles of Narnia, and that's my 5-point scale, where the silver chair is a 1, and no, I'm just kidding. No, but where the bottom line is like whatever the worst Narnia book is. I mean, yeah, I could probably give this one a 3, but if I'm ranking this against every other book that's out there, like giving this book a 3 is a huge disservice to what's here.
I can see what you're saying.
There's so many books way worse than this book out there.
There are, but it is, as Will said, it is the low point in this entire series. It just is. I think maybe we should revisit our overall ratings for all of them once we've finished.
We're gonna do an entire Chronicles of Narnia podcast where we just talk about the Chronicles of Narnia at the when we finish all of them. Yeah. One of our in-between book podcasts will be a literal just let's review the Chronicles of Narnia as a whole.
I'm gonna stick with a 3.
We'll do a tier list and everything.
Okay, I'm gonna stick with a 3 for now, just because it's rushed. Okay, there's a difference between. I'll put it this way: there's a difference between the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe's rushing at the end, and the rushing of Prince Caspian, because Prince Caspian's rushing has a lot less there in it than the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobes did. I think they had way more there.
Okay.
Just with the way he goes about each character's journey, there seems to be more substance. There's actually a battle that it's important and then Aslan has to show up with all the people that he rescues. It kind of resurrects from stone. I don't know. There just seems... It's hard to say, really. Plus, it's rushed because, Aslan goes through the whole death and resurrection himself.
Yeah, there's
None of
multiple
that
Bible
happens in
stories involved in the Lion the Witch. I mean, I guess there is in this one too.
But in this one, the ending that's rushed is like Aslan is just there. He gathers the trees. They go through everything. All the actions everywhere else seem kind of pointless outside of it. It's not like, oh, well, we have to have this battle. It's just we're biding our time now for Aslan and the trees. And then I still kind of fail to see the true lessons of what Aslan achieves when he's going through the towns and stuff, kind of like scaring away some people, getting others to follow him. I guess it makes sense because it's like conversion of a bunch of people to the Narnian way, but it's not as substantial, you know.
What is the phrase? Convert by sword? I'm just kidding.
No, not in this one. He brings hope, man. He brings hope.
I was just kidding.
Everyone wants to join the parade.
What was it? When I was a young boy. No, I'm just kidding.
Goodness.
Anyways,
all right.
There's no way that's being picked
I'm
up
joking.
on
I'm joking.
but yeah, I'm between a 3 and a 4. So if you're doing it just based on the Chronicles of Narnia and the ranking system is there, I give it a 3. If it's based on every book out there, I'd give it a 4.
Okay.
So
I mean, it seems a little high to me, but
3.5 is my nice average.
Oh, I'll give it to you. Alrighty. Well, let's just remind everybody.
I don't see any actual questions other than what's this book about, which we just went through. And then, okay, yeah, I kind of explained. So thank you for being there, Wubio. We appreciate you. I don't see, let's see, Rumble. I don't see any questions on the Rumbles. I'll check one more time. Nope, no questions on the Rumble. And none on the Twitter. So make sure you guys follow our Goodreads. I put links in the chat.
Well, and subscribe.
Or the book club's link, one or the other. And yeah, definitely subscribe.
Subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Rumble, whatever is your favorite. We don't care.
As long as your favorite is not Odyssey, because that site, I still haven't figured out how to save my live streams, and that's over.
Give us a follow on Twitter at the Krillcast and
at Printed and Pressed.
Thank you. I'm having a language.
Which I forgot. I forgot to actually tag Printed and Pressed for once on the.
Oh my goodness! We'll have to retweet it. Yeah. Next time 2 weeks from now, Printed and Pressed will be back with
The Prince by Machiavelli. And if I had more thought on this, I would have brought it down with me to show it off. But
it's fine.
Here it is. It's right there.
So,
as always, I'm Chris.
And I'm Andrew.
And I'm Will. And we will see you
on the next Printed and Pressed.
See y'all.